Hey guys, it's Ryan, your host here. Thank you for downloading this new podcast hosted by myself and my friend Nick. Unfortunately, we have had to record over Skype due to new local lockdown restrictions in the UK. We have also had to change the name of the new pod to Two Albums Podcast. You can find us on Instagram at twoalbums.pod and on Twitter at twoalbumspod. Thanks for tuning in and we hope you enjoy it. It's all people that think they're really cool because they understand French heavy metal, and it's not that different from English heavy metal. In
It's
fact,
just
the only difference is it's in French. That's it.
does heavy metal do heavy metal lyrics like sound weird in French? Because the French language is like quite romantic.
Yeah, no, it does. It's like "Parlez-vous crochet?" and you're like, what the fuck? It's like I really like. It's like I need to find some Gojira lyrics and translate them because I swear to God, it's like the episode of Community where the dean says that his thoughts are in French. You know, when it's like sad music
And
and
he's
things.
like, I really want to learn Excel, but my thoughts are in French. Let's start the podcast.
All right.
Do you want to introduce it? Go on, introduce it,
I'll
Ryan.
introduce. I'll introduce it.
Introduce your podcast.
Okay. Hello and welcome to the first episode of Three Songs. Basically, what we do in this podcast is we pick out two albums each. We tell each other at the end of each episode what we're going to be talking about next week. We each listen to it, come back with our three favorite songs, and either slag it off or praise it. And that's essentially all this is going to be. And I'm Ryan Underwood, the host, and my co-host is Nicholas Scott. Say hi, Nick.
Hi, I'm
Hi.
Nick. I'm the co-host.
So, we're going to pick underrated albums that are, in our opinion, underrated because, of course, people might comment if we ever get any viewers saying, this isn't underrated, this is a classic. And I'll be going, no, it's fucking not. It's very underrated. Even if it's popular, I'll still say it's underrated because it's my opinion.
Yeah.
So,
Some people are stupid. Some people don't realize how good some albums are.
yeah, like we were literally having this conversation on Facebook, weren't we, about Gambino and about how
Yeah,
everyone loves him, but he's still underrated.
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
because people don't listen to all of the album, they listen to the hits and then fuck off and then say they
yeah.
love Gambino and they don't.
People are like, like a base level are like, oh yeah, this is America, Redbone, good
Yeah,
tracks, and then they'll be
the
like, oh,
Spanish
so
101 rap.
next level they'll be like, oh yeah, Sweatpants, Spanish 101, Jehovah's Most Secret Witness.
Yeah, yeah, and the Christmas one's fucking, yeah, it's so good. Yeah,
Right.
so that's essentially all this podcast is. I'm gonna flip a coin or something. Do you know what? I'm gonna flip. What have I
I
got?
have got a coin.
Have you got a coin?
Yeah.
Right. So, two albums this week have been predetermined because, of course, we're not going to do a single episode going, these are the albums we're going to listen to in the first episode. So, Nick, have you got a coin?
Yeah. Go on, heads or tails, Ryan?
Heads.
You're gonna go heads.
Yeah.
It was tails, so do you want to go first or shall I go first?
You go first, Nick.
Okay, so the album I picked for Ryan to listen to was an album by a band called The Cure. Came out in 1984 at a time where the band was very much between members and also kind of between genres. It represents a shift from like the very gothic post-punk vibe of The Cure to a more sort of poppy mood. I like to think it's a bit more theatrical. It's a bit bougie, you know what I mean? You got tracks like Love Cats, which I feel is kind of like a musical theatre track. And then you got Just One Kiss as well,
Yeah.
another very dramatic sort of song. It's nothing like The Cure did before. It was so unexpected. No one expected The Cure to release this EP at this time because the bass player had just left and the drummer had changed. So this was like a really sort of out of the blue album. But I feel that because it sort of shows the transition from the move from very gothic, very dark post-punk to something that is still quite dark but still a bit more poppy. I think it's a really good like first listen if you wanted to get into The Cure. I think the album Japanese Whispers is a great way to understand what The Cure is about. You know, it's not all just really dark, depressing. It is quite sad, and some of the images are quite sad, but it can still have like these really interesting sounds and quite upbeat songs. So yeah,
Yeah.
I chose the album for Ryan, Japanese Whispers.
Do you know what? After listening to this album, I can understand why people like The Cure, because I have listened to bits of The Cure. Of course, I knew Love Cats, but I didn't really know the band that well because everyone knows Love Cats. But
Yeah,
like I do understand it. It's still not one of my one of the bands I'm like, fuck, I still need to listen to loads of them. But I can understand where it comes from. Then again, like when it comes to most post punk bands, which is weird because the album we'll get to later that I chose is also a post punk album. I just don't seem to connect with it as much because I do feel like it's very commercial. But then again, there's nothing wrong with being commercial. The success then. I feel like what we should do, Nick, is we should give a little listen and we can either edit it out or we can edit in.
okay.
So the first song of the album, what is it, Nick?
First song on the album. Oh God, you testing me? I want
You're on
to
a
say,
laptop, you can pull it up.
I am on a laptop. I can pull it up. I'm gonna check on my phone though. I was gonna say Let's Go to Bed, and it is true. Let's Go to Bed is the first track on the album. I actually really like this track, and it was one that I had never really heard of. Like, I think like I was aware of Japanese Whispers, but as I say, like, it's not a full Cure album, and
Yeah.
it comes in that weird transition period. But I think Let's Go to Bed is a really like strong track, and one of the stronger tracks on the album. What do you think?
I as you said about the album, it's not really a full album. I did look at it and go, this is more of an EP.
Yeah,
Um,
it is. Yeah.
do you know what? To be honest, when I was listening to the album, I did go, this is quite a strong opening for such a small album. Um, I did quite like it. And it is what maybe one of the better tracks on the album. Um, I think what I will do is I will edit in a little snippet as they do on Desert Island Discs of the song. I'm just gonna have like a listen to it while we're talking. This song, in my opinion, it's very prominent of the change from punk to pop.
Yeah.
Yeah. I do like he's got the doubled up vocals with quite a bit of reverb on it, and that's something I really do enjoy when I listen to music.
That's something that became like really it was a really I think the next big album that they released well, to be fair, Disintegration, which is their most famous album, came quite close off the back of this one, and you can almost hear like the foundations, particularly in tracks like Let's Go to Bed. Not necessarily in Love Cats, because Disintegration, like in its big tracks, did move away from that more upbeat thing. It did kind of go back to the darker sort of side of their work. But
Yeah.
certainly in Let's Go to Bed, you can hear a lot of the ground workings for how the sound was going to work. Because if you
Mm,
listen to the album before it, Pornography, it's still kind of like messy in a sense. And like you got to remember, The Cure were a punk band. They weren't always this sort of like synthy, gothic pop band. They were
yeah.
a punk and post-punk band.
I think something that helps to establish them as they were a punk band in my eyes is that their lead singer, I've forgotten his name.
Robert
Forgive me,
Smith.
I'm not a big Robert Smith. I'm not a giant The Cure fan, but he played guitar for Susie and the Banshees for a bit,
Yeah,
didn't he?
yeah, he
Yeah,
did, yeah.
which is fucking sick because Susie and the Banshees, I later found out, was on that interview that the Sex Pistols got kicked out of.
Yeah, yeah, I've seen that clip. I remember watching that clip. It's like, what the fuck is Robert Smith doing in that?
Yeah, yeah, and it made me laugh because I was like, this just proves how because it's very famous that punk only lasted like not even 100 days. It was basically 100 hours of punk,
Yeah.
and it's like, and it does prove that these people were more talented than punk let them be,
Yeah.
and I feel
I
like that
agree.
comes through on this album.
But I also feel like I remember you mentioned earlier like it being more of a commercial album. I do in some ways agree with that. I think if you look at like certain artists and certain groups, once you start to look at the longevity of them, you start to see, and I don't want to say lose integrity, but lose a sort of structure within their style. And we mentioned Gambino earlier. Don't know if that'll make it into the
Hmm.
podcast, but the Gambino is another example. Bomb Camp is a very different, is an entirely different album to Awaken My Love or
Hmm.
Awaken Your Love. I can't remember which one it is. And the thing that I think is really good with The Cure is it, yeah, its sound does evolve, but the sound never feels dishonest or manufactured in a way. I feel
Hmm.
like everything, yeah, each album there is a progression from punk to post-punk to goth to sad pop sort of thing. There is that progression for that, but it never feels like the choices made on Cure songs are they still have creative integrity behind them, in my opinion. Which is what I like about this album. I think, yeah, it's different and it was different to what they were doing, but I still think everything works.
Right. So, Nick, what's the second track of Japanese Whisper?
The second track of Japanese Whisper is The Dream. And it is still like I feel like it is a very great example of what the Cure moved to. That's what I meant to say.
Yeah.
It's a really good example of the sort of things you were gonna hear on Disintegration. It's not quite as dark as Disintegration, and it's not quite as poppy as say a track like Fire in Cairo or I Wish I Was You. It is, but it is still different. It was different from what they were doing. I like how the sound has more of a structure. I felt like the some of the earlier Cure stuff, the sound, it is a bit more derivative of what Adam and the Ants and New Order were doing. It
Yeah.
is the there was a lot of like ambience in there, whereas the Dream does represent something that has a lot going on in the sound, but
Yeah.
it is still kind of structured. What do you think of this track?
This is one of the better tracks on this album, in my opinion. But again, I'm not really that big on synthy sounds in music, especially in an 80s like sound. It's not my vibe. I do like this album, as I said, but again, it's something that I'll be able to listen to and shuffle through. But it's nothing. This song's not one of those songs where if it came up on my playlist, I wouldn't skip it.
Yeah, but you
I
wouldn't
do
go
feel
out
like,
of your way to listen to it. You're not like, oh,
no, I'd
craving
wait
it.
for it to come to me
Okay.
and then
Yeah,
see
I get
how I
that.
felt. Yeah, but then
I
again,
think,
some of my favorite songs I do that with.
yeah, I think that's actually a really good way to describe this album. I think apart from maybe Love Hats, I never seek out these tracks.
Yeah,
Um, but yeah,
yeah. Right.
when they
So
come on, I'm
Nick,
like,
go on.
so this is Just One Kiss. I quite like this track. I don't think it's my favorite. Um, as I mentioned earlier, it's an example of how the album does have a bit more of a dramatic feel. I kind of feel as if The Cure at this point, they were experimenting with something that they're using a bigger sound, and it's not like The Cure ever had a small sound, but particularly in Disintegration, I know I keep coming back. It is their most well-known album.
Yeah,
Um, Disintegration has a really big sound, and I feel like tracks like Just One Kiss are an example of that big sound. But it's not my favorite. I find that whole like that lyrical hook where they're like just one kiss and it's like synced up with the beat. It's not something that it's just it doesn't do it for me. Do you know what I mean?
no. I was gonna
But
say to me, this is the weakest, well, maybe one of the weakest songs on the album.
yeah,
Like, don't get me wrong, I like the build up, I like the spacing. You're right. The hook's not really a hook.
yeah. The fact that the hook is a lyrical hook and then a hook in the beat as well. I feel like they were trying to make it impactful, but it's like it tries to make it too obvious.
Yeah,
And like I don't think the Cure should ever when the Cure tries to be obvious, it doesn't sound good. I just think like the Cure is something that it shouldn't ever try to get into your head. You just kind of got to listen to it.
yeah. I mean, when I was listening to this album, you can see this in a negative way or a good way. To me, it flowed the whole album, and this was right in the flow. To me, this is a lull in the album. This is a bit to like let you go, okay, this is just a song. Well, it helps some of the better ones stick out.
Yeah,
Um, but also when this song came on, I was kind of like, oh, this is background music, and I didn't really see this song as anything more.
mm.
But
I
it's not a bad song.
it's not a bad song. It's
It's
just
not a
not.
great song.
Yeah, yeah. I don't think because there were some songs that I took from this album, and I did actually like put them on like my everyday bumming around playlist. This isn't one of them. I'm
No, no.
trying to think which ones
Right.
it was.
Should we move on to
Next
the
track.
next
Go on,
song?
next track. Do it. The
What's
upstairs
this?
room.
There we go.
I love it, all these games we play. I close my eyes, you run away. I'm sure I
Do you like this one?
I do like this song. So this one was one of the ones that I was like, fuck yeah, this is a good Cure song.
Yeah, I like it. I think it is a very like what the Cure were about to do. It is more sort of derivative of I Wish I Were You or something like that. One of their more sort of like upbeat, but it is still quite sound. And
Mm,
it's another example of like the use of all the sounds. So yeah,
yeah, I think this song is one of the songs that I put on my everyday playlist. I was like,
yeah,
I like it, and if anything, to me, this is one of the songs where I go, yeah, this is a Cure song. It just there's a
yeah,
there's an ambiance to it where, to me, like I said, like some post punk, especially over synthy post punk music, gets on my nerves, and it's not something that I find appetizing to listen to. But this is a song where I was like, you know what? They've kind of blended the synth with the guitar, and the drums feel like it could have easily have just been someone at a drum kit instead of a drum pad, which
yeah.
is I like it.
Well, a lot of it is. I think they did use some drum sample, although I'm not sure. But I think a lot of this is on like a proper wooden kit. But I think the way the I never really like think about the drums in Cure songs. I feel like a lot of Cure songs treat the drums very very much as a utility to keep the beat, which is ironically something that Prince Charming, Adam and the Ants, doesn't do
Yeah,
at all.
yeah,
It is very much the drums are very much the driving force in a lot of the songs in that album, whereas The Cure focuses throughout its whole discography a lot on Robert Smith's vocals,
Yeah,
and then sometimes when it was early, the early punk tracks, a lot of it's quite bass driven,
yeah,
and then as it moved on later, it became sort of ambient noises and stuff like that.
yeah,
And then I think after this album, we start to see more of a focus on synthesizers and other sort of instruments as well.
yeah. Yeah, see, with this song, with this band in particular, I don't know about their other albums because, like I said, I've not really listened to a lot of them. I do feel like there is a sense of his lyrics may be sort of story driven, but they're almost poetic in the sense that your English teacher would say Eminem's one of the best poets. It's the same thing of the Cure.
I think we
They're
had a
one,
different English teacher.
no, but you know what I mean, where it's like they're like, oh well, rap is just poetry, music is just
Yeah.
poetry. I think this is what loads of music is not poetry. This
Yeah.
is a very poetic band, and this song is very poetic on the album.
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
feel like
Yeah.
a lot of this is about sleeping with girls or almost sleeping with girls. That's what I'm getting a lot from The
Right.
Cure.
Okay, I'm gonna tell you a tell you a funny story from when I worked at the Ritz in Manchester. So I think it was like my third shift. Elbow, as in Ground to Divorce, Elbow.
Yeah.
They played like they played like this weird. It wasn't a. It was kind of a gig. It was more like a showcase sort of thing. It was like being filmed, put on a DVD. It was like one of those. And the front man, I can't think of his name. Um, whatever, Mr. Elbow. He just kind of got progressively drunk throughout the thing. He did the same set twice for two different audiences. It was a short set, and each time he told this story of how when the Ritz was a nightclub and he used to come here as a kid, he would dance for a bit and then get too depressed, and he would sort of sit on the steps and daydream about this goth chick coming to teach him how to smoke and how to have sex, and they would run away together. And I feel like a lot of Cure songs are
Or
about
about
that.
that.
Having
It's the
someone,
pixie it's the pixie dream girl before the pixie dream girl.
yeah, it
Yeah.
literally is. It literally a lot of.
It's that is
You
the
know,
Cure in a nutshell.
do you want to know
Yeah.
like Robert Smith has only had sex with one woman. He's only ever, I'm pretty sure, like he's like proper, like only ever been in love with one woman.
That's really cute that though.
Yeah.
I appreciate that sort of stuff. But to me it's like that sort of thought process that that guy from Elbow had is the music that you're hearing in this sort of genre. And to me, I can understand why basic white girls really like it, but I can also understand why it's edgy at the same time.
I think a lot of like a lot of art students who like The Cure.
Yeah.
Uh, a lot of people who drink too much red wine and struggle to talk to people that they're romantically interested to. They either like The Cure or I feel like when you become a teenager and you
Mm-hmm.
start to like get interested in people that you're romantically interested in, but don't know how to talk to them, you can go down two routes. You can go down the 1975 route, or
Yeah.
you can go down the Cure route.
Yeah. No, I completely agree with this because as we've all been teenagers, and
Yeah,
when we were in college together at the age of 16, I think very much for me as someone who has had always been single, and for someone who I was actively looking for a relationship, which wasn't the best idea. You should always let it come to you, in my opinion. I
mhm,
was using a lot of music that went with my thoughts, and to me that was like to me it was a lot of Nirvana, but Nirvana have been a staple of my music taste since I was very young. But I
yeah,
think that the first couple of Arctic Monkeys albums were some of those albums for me, where I was like,
yeah.
like just don't leave before the lights come on and all this sort of stuff.
Also,
Like
like
it is,
certain romance as well, like watching the girl you have a
yeah,
crush on go off with the
a dickhead.
yeah,
Yeah, and that's why I liked poetry and stuff. But then again, like all the courses I did were related about around writing and that sort of stuff. And I think
Yeah.
that's what we are very interested in is thought processes and writing. And when that's put to music, that's more fun, in my
Yeah.
opinion.
That is something I really, really do like about The Cure. Like the way the lyrics are written, it is very poetic. There is like a lot of imagery in it. I love the sound. I think The Cure have a great sound,
Yeah.
but also I really like. I think some of their songs they're a bit just sort of like, okay, yeah, we get it, Robert Smith. You're a bit depressed and you've had too much red wine.
Right before we move on, I want to go sticking on that subject of the poeticness of the Cure and bands like the Cure. I remember I was talking to a mate called Spike after we'd finished playing the Arts Club in Liverpool. I got off the stage and we were like smoking outside, and I was talking to Spike, and I only see him every so often now because he works quite a lot. And he said there's no bands out there at the moment that are doing what you're trying to do, which is like in the current stream of music, there's no bands like this going out, and it's really annoying because these are always the best bands. It's the bands where they take something that everybody goes through, makes it sound very personal, and then write about it, like the Arctic Monkeys does. Like, because everybody goes through these things that the Cure and the Arctic Monkeys and all these bands write about. Everybody goes through them, but somehow they make it feel very personal, and that's why you link with it because you go, "That's exactly how I'm feeling. How did he know?" And the only
Yeah.
reason he knows is because everybody feels it, but it's personal.
Yeah, that is a very good way of putting some Cure songs. Some are just a
Yeah,
bit weird.
yeah. Right, Nick. What is the next track?
Anyway, so this is The Walk.
I called you after midnight. You ran until I burst. I passed the howling woman.
This is
This
very
is-
poppy. This is like very synthy. It's very driven by the synthesizer,
It definitely is.
and you've
I-
got like it's almost disco. Do you know what I mean? With like
Yeah.
that bouncy sort of bass line.
That was my immediate opinion of the song. Is this is extremely disco,
Yeah,
but I genuinely do like this song. This is one of my favorites on this album as a whole.
yeah,
I do really like it. This is one of those songs where I've heard it before, but I didn't really link it because I don't listen to The Cure. I hear it
It's-
a lot at house parties.
it's the hook. The
Yeah.
yeah. I feel
Yeah.
like it is it like I feel like there's so many songs that came from bands like The Cure, like Adam and the Ants, that they become like ingrained in pop culture, not on like an obvious level, not on a level like everyone knows a Beatles song, or not on a level like everyone knows a Taylor Swift song, but on a
Yeah.
level that like it's been in a TV show or an advert, and it becomes or is always on at parties. Like the person with the music taste or with the aux chord will put this on.
Yeah.
It is,
Apparently they were used in Ant-Man and Judge Dredd.
yeah, yeah. Like ever since Guardians of the Galaxy came out, superhero films were just like, oh yeah, where can we put in rock's music that everyone's kind of heard of, but we don't
Yeah.
have to pay too much licensing fees on it.
That's one reason Captain Marvel annoys me as a film because she wears a Nine Inch
Not enough
Nails
Nirvana
t-shirt.
for it.
No, right. This is annoying. She wears a Nine Inch Nails t-shirt. Never is a Nine Inch Nails song played in the whole film. The thing that annoys me is Guardians did it really well. Captain Marvel's did a, oh, we're in the 90s. Let's play 0.5 seconds of 90s music and ignore all the good 90s music.
The
And they
thing
played
is,
Hole at the end. What the fuck? Why would you play Hole
the
at
thing
all?
is, the thing with Guardians of the Galaxy, the playlist was a motif.
Yeah.
It was like it was a creative choice. Whereas with Captain Marvel, I feel like the music was much more about building that 90s era world.
Right, next song on the album.
The next track is Speak My Language. I think this is one of the weaker tracks, if
It
not
definitely is.
the weakest. It's just that this is the thing I don't like about this album. It's because it is a compilation EP. It's not a full album. It has some really amazing songs,
Yeah,
and then it has just a lot of. It has for a small album as well. It has a fair amount of filler. I feel like Speak My Language and then Lament, which is on after this. They're also like filler songs as well. Yeah, we'll
just go
leave
on
that.
about how "Speak My Language" is one of the weakest songs.
I just don't get. It's just it's so derivative of things like just the upstairs room and the walk. It's like I feel like these four songs. So the upstairs room, the walk, speak my language, and lament. The upstairs room and the walk do what the next two try to do, but they do it so much better. And then
Yeah,
just leave tracks like speak my language and lament, and then just sort of like next, come on. It
this is
just
the one
doesn't.
thing about this album that annoyed me is that it's very short, but there's still 2 or 3 filler songs.
Yeah, it's like, come on, you got. I know that they were between members, but like, you've got no excuse for an 8-track EP to have 2 filler songs. Like,
No,
it.
right.
Yeah.
Before this one pisses you off anymore, let's move on to the one that you said a minute ago, "Lament."
Again, this is just another like. I think it does. Lament does have its merits,
Mhm.
but I do just. I listen to this album and I'm just like, when is Love Cats coming on?
Yeah,
Because like, it's such a banger. I like there was a period of my time where I would just listen to Love Cats every day, and I listen to songs like Lament, and I'm just like, want to listen to Love Cats now.
I think this song to me is a very nothing song. You listen to it and you give more to the song than you get out of it. You give your
Yeah.
time and you give your effort to want to like the song,
Mm,
and you don't get anything in return. It's
yeah.
like, to me, this filler song is either they didn't give a shit or they're doing the Scorsese deal, which is 2 for them, 1 for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't think music. I think music either has to be this is all me or this is all for you. And I prefer music that's all for them because that makes me like it more. This feels like this feels like they didn't give a shit.
They're definitely. I feel it. I agree with you. I think when an artist is making music, obviously, if an artist is making an album and it needs 12 songs and they've only really got 9 or 10 that they feel are solid, they are going to have to put another two in there. But I
Yeah,
also, and like that does get to me because I feel like I would rather have an album that's got 10 songs on it that are all honest, that are all straight from the writer's heart, than listen to, you know, 10 songs plus 2 fillers. Because
yeah,
I just sort of like, you got to think like, why have you put this track in here? I do agree. I think like, yeah, if it had just been 6 or 5 tracks, I think, yeah, it would have been a lot better.
yeah,
Yeah, in many ways I do agree. In such as you could get down to the nitty-gritty and say a lot of people do class this as like an extended play singles compilation. I do agree with you.
yeah.
It could have just been 5 tracks and I would have just been as happy. Like I feel like I don't need lament in my life.
No.
I don't, you know.
All
Yeah.
right, let's get on to Nick's pride and joy of this album.
We move like caged tigers, oh, we couldn't get closer than this. The way we walk, the way we talk, the way we stalk, the way we kiss. We slip through the streets while everyone sleeps, getting bigger and sleeker and wider and brighter.
Straight
Bite
ending,
and
isn't it?
scratch and scream
The
all
sound.
night. Let's go and
What I love about it is it has got those ambient sounds like in that intro that, you know, previous albums like Pornography is famous for, and that whole like post-punk thing is going on, but it's still got this really poppy bass line and all the trumpets in it and that really sort of theatrical, almost musical theatre-esque sort of vibe to it.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
also, Robert Smith, I get you're depressed, but I love it when you make upbeat songs. He's really
Yeah.
for someone who is known as making really sad songs. He makes amazing upbeat songs like Love Cats.
Do you know what? Yesterday I was at Jess's and she was like, "Oh, so what albums are you doing on your podcast?" And I told her. And as soon as I brought up The Cure, she's like, "Oh, don't really know any of The Cure. I don't think I've ever listened to them." And I went, "Oh, well, you'll know this one." And I put it on, and she was like, "Oh my god, this just reminds me of every single house party I've ever been to, and I
Yeah,
absolutely love it."
yeah.
Because to me, because of the house parties that we've been to, it just reminds me of this song makes me think of friends and being jolly, and I never connected the song to it until I listened to this album. I was like, "Oh my god, this song!"
The thing I also like about the song is like it's not post-punk,
No,
it's not pop, it's not gothic. I like, but it's Cure. Do you know what I mean? I feel like it doesn't fit in any sort of the boxes that people give to Cure albums and Cure songs, but
yeah,
I love that it's its own thing.
I love that about a band where they don't fit into a genre for a bit. Like the one thing that I really admire the Foo Fighters for, which I don't really like the Foo Fighters. I like the first album or two, and that's about it. But they do whenever someone goes in their band, they're like, "Oh well, we can't play that. That doesn't sound like the Foo Fighters." Dave Grohl just goes, "Where the fuck are the Foo Fighters? We decide what we sound like."
Yeah, and it's like we were saying earlier, like The Cure, it does have like a really wide range of sounds, genres, and attitudes to music, but I still feel that a lot of the tracks that they make, apart from the tracks we were talking about earlier, do have integrity to them. And if not integrity, they do have like an element of courage behind them. I feel.
Yeah.
I feel like Love Cats. It's got a bit of balls behind it.
Yeah, I was about to say it feels like this. It feels like the sort of song where their record label will go, "Are you sure you want to release this? This doesn't sound like The Cure." And Robert Smith just put his giant depressed penis on the table and went, "This is the fucking Cure. Now let me put this song on this fucking album, or I'm walking out." And I respect the song. I do feel like, however, if I had to tie it to any genre, it's theatrical pop.
I like that though. I like
So
that.
do I.
It's a bit bougie. It's a bit like it's a bit. I'm trying to think. The opulent. It is a little opulent, and I like when the Cure does opulence.
I am
Such a good
also
track.
a sucker for ambient sounds and music. When
Yeah,
it's done right, I love it.
and Love Cats is a really good example of a song that does ambient noises well. And
Yeah,
as
it
although
really does.
it almost feels like the Cure is not necessarily closing the book on ambient songs with this track, but it was just sort of like, yeah, this is us, this is what we do. We know how to use this element of music. Whereas on tracks like The Upstairs Room and more of the driven tracks, it is more of an experimentation. Whereas Love Cats, it manages to sort of get this poppy vibe that they're moving into, but also still put their own stamp on it as to, yeah, we
Yeah.
know what we're doing here.
I'm very glad that you said that Love Cats is your favorite song in this album, and the reason I'm happy with that is because a lot of people don't like it when people choose the popular song from a thing as their favorite song from the thing. And to be honest, that never means that it's a bad song. That means it's obviously fucking good, and that's why it's your favorite.
Yeah.
And I don't think anyone should be criticized for that. Anyway, Nick, that was a really, really good choice. And we're going to go for a short break now. And we will be back after we've had a smoke, got another drink. Maybe Nick's going to have a coffee or a bottle of red wine. Who knows? We'll see you after the break.